Raise your hand if you've ever heard of slavery. Right, about half the room. In 1865, slavery was abolished, freeing enslaved black people from centuries of servitude. But did you know that some states already abolished slavery long before 1865? Did you also know that even before those states abolished slavery, some enslaved people took it upon themselves to sue for their freedom? One of those people was Elizabeth Freeman, who held the state of Massachusetts to its own words that all men are born free and equal and have certain natural, essential, and unalienable rights. Let's talk about it. Elizabeth Freeman was born into slavery around 1744 in New York and given the name Bet. We don't know the exact date of her birth. Actually, that could be said of many of the enslaved. Frederick Douglass famously wrote, "I have no accurate knowledge of my age, never having seen any authentic record containing it. By far, the larger part of the slaves know little of their ages, as horses know of theirs." Sit with that for a second and imagine what it would feel like to not know when you were born. Gotta tell you, that fact hit me pretty hard. No birthday celebrations. When someone asks you how old you are, you answer with an educated guess. There are countless atrocities associated with slavery, but knowing that you were thought so little of that the day in which you first graced this earth was of no significance in the eyes of white people? Anywho, she worked on the plantation of Peter Hodgeboom until she was about 7. When his daughter Hannah married Colonel John Ashley of Sheffield, Massachusetts, Hodgeboom was like, "Congrats, daughter of mine. Here's a black child that'll work for you for free for the rest of her life. Good luck." "You shouldn't have. I've always wanted one of my own." Now, Bet and Hannah didn't get along too well. Turns out Hannah was a bit of a demon. One time, she tried to hit another enslaved woman with a heated shovel, and Bet stepped in with some "not today, bitch" energy and blocked her. As a result, the shovel hit Bet's arm instead and badly injured her. Being the queen that she was, Bet refused to hide her wound, and whenever anyone would ask, "Girl, what happened to you?" she was like, "Ask this bitch over here." She wanted everyone to see what she and others like her endured at the hands of this white lady. Your Honor, we have no choice but to stand. The man of the house, John Ashley, was a lawyer, businessman, landowner, and community leader. The Ashley home was the site of many political discussions and where the 1773 Sheffield Declaration was drafted, which was a document that was like, "Wow, we don't like how we're being treated by the British. Oh, we're equal. We have our rights. Oh, liberty." It is thought that in 1780, Bet either heard John Ashley discussing the newly ratified Massachusetts Constitution or she heard it read at a public gathering. Either way, what she honed in on was Article 1. All men are born free and equal and have certain natural, essential, and unalienable rights. Bet was like, "Did you say all?" She enlisted the help of abolitionist lawyer Theodore Sedgwick and sued for her freedom based on the state's constitution. Another man enslaved by the Ashleys by the name of Brom was like, "She, sign me up too!" And Brom and Bet versus Ashley was on and popping. I'm gonna stop right here for a second and explain something. Around this time, nearly 30 enslaved people had sued for their freedom in Massachusetts, and they could do so because in Massachusetts, they were viewed as both property and as people before the law. Thus, they could bring lawsuits against their enslavers, so they could be beat on Wednesday and in court by Friday. Thanks for that crumb of humanity, Massachusetts. The case was heard in August of 1781 before the County Court of Common Pleas. The argument was plain and simple. The constitutional provision, "all men are born free and equal," basically abolished slavery in the state. I mean, you can't really dispute that. It's right there. But it also says something like that in the Declaration of Independence, and that was signed 5 years prior, so I don't know what the fuck is going on. Shockingly, the jury ruled in their favor, and Bet became the first black woman to be free under the Massachusetts state constitution. Well, seeing as though it is there in black and white, get it, black and white, because slavery, we're gonna have to let her go. Butthurt John Ashley tried to appeal the ruling, but a few months later dropped it. He then had the audacity to ask Bet to come back and work for him and his demon wife, but for pay this time. Can you believe this guy? His wife actively beats the shit out of me and he wants me to go work for him again. Fuck yourself, John. She declined, changed her name to Elizabeth Freeman, and chose to work for her lawyer's family instead. She worked as a governess to the Sedgwick children for years and became recognized for her skills as a midwife and a nurse. Her 1781 court win was used as a precedent during a review of the case of Quock Walker, who also sued and won his freedom. Both cases laid the foundation for the eventual abolishment of slavery in Massachusetts in 1783. Elizabeth Freeman died in December of 1829 around the age of 85. She was buried in the Sedgwick family plot in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, and is the only non-Sedgwick buried there. You know what's interesting to me? There's language that is often used to absolve the Founding Fathers and early Americans of their racist choices. My favorite is, it was a different time. Now, I have trouble with that because take today's lesson. Slavery was abolished in Massachusetts in 1783. Our first president, a slave-owning president, might I add, didn't take office until 1789. One would deduce that these smart men would have known that slavery was awful if part of their newly formed little union was against it. So you can miss me with the "it was a different time" bullshit. Yeah, it was a different time for fashion, for travel. You don't get excused just because you've been entombed for 221 years. These men actively chose to participate in something that many knew to be terrible. And that's a reality that many of you Founding Father loving people need to understand. Anywho, happy Black History Month. Class dismissed.